All right.
Under the same moon, we share the love.
We have Stella in
Embracing
the
the
building.
differences like hand in glove.
We have Phil in
Spreading
the
peace and
building.
joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. Together we
Mustaines in the
stand
building.
in love's pure might. Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Verdict Watch with Mel and Candace. Tonight, we have quite the show in store. We're going to be talking about so many things, especially when it comes to. Have you heard about the drowning of Daniel Irving? I have to wonder why we don't know a lot about that case. Well, tonight we're going to break it down. In fact, an individual has been indicted, right, in regards to that case, but he was obviously drowned intentionally, or we're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about the President of the United States, Donald Trump. There's just so much to unpack. And also, as you know, we've been covering Luigi Mangione for quite some time. His trial is fast approaching for September. We're talking about the state trial, but at the beginning of the year, we actually have his federal trial. So I'll be in court back to back. But let's bring on our dear expert to the show. Her name is Candace Kelley. She's a law professor and she is so amazing. You guys will get a chance to see it for yourself. Candace, come on in.
Hey, how you doing, Mal? Good to see you.
Quite well, quite well. How are things?
Everything is well on this summer evening. They are. Everything is good.
Good deal. What do you think about this case that we've been discussing lately, Daniel Irving, and how come it's not getting a lot of broadcast?
Daniel Irving is one of those cases. It's kind of like when there are more than one case of a certain type, people start paying attention. One case, two cases, three cases. I mean, when you get to two and three cases at a time, right? People just start paying attention more. But this was something that happened back in April. And Benjamin Crump is on the case. So I cannot explain the algorithm that is out there and why people are have not paid attention to it as much, but they are now because that is what the algorithm does. And then certainly, as I said, Ben Crump is on the case, and he would like to see more charges come forth, and he would like to see perhaps a murder charge of some type. So we might see more from this in terms of a grand jury and an indictment. You mentioned that we had some people that were arrested for tampering with evidence, but that is different than what this particular family and Ben Crump want to see happen.
Right, right. So, could you help us understand what happened with Daniel Irving? Looked like they were out and about for a day and jumping and all sorts of things in the water.
Yeah. So Daniel Irving, he was on the swimming team, and they always like to cast the light and make the person who died either, a football player or a swimmer or an honor student. And so he is
Right.
our honor student that is also a fantastic swimmer. He was on the team. Now, that being said, they, meaning the people that were with him and the police, certainly have corroborated this after an autopsy was performed and after talking to people. They said that he jumped into the water and that he came up for air, called out for someone, but then went down. And at that point, the people that he was with, they panicked. Their story is that they panicked, they grabbed his clothes, they put them up in a tree, they threw his phone in a ditch because they said that they were scared. Now, when the autopsy results came through and it appears as though this was no foul play, the conclusion that they came to is that really these were just, young men that had, at the end of the day, just tampered with evidence. And I don't mean just, and to minimize it, but in terms of comparing it to a murder or manslaughter, they said that this was really two young men who panicked. And as a result, they did a really stupid thing, which was tamper with evidence in terms of delete messages, get rid of the phone, and get rid of his clothes. So his family is saying, no, we're not. There's something fishy here. We're not going for this, and we need to actually see more.
Right. When was the last time prior to this year? When was the last time have you heard of a big drowning case that made, the big stream news?
Um, yeah. Well, I don't know if you can count on my memory, but in terms of these two cases, listen, I know that there are. I do not know. I do not recall.
Right.
Um, but I know that now is a time where a lot of people are talking about it, and a lot of people are going to be looking for more of these cases because where there are one, there are two, there are many more.
Yeah, it's just so strange. I can't even recall the last time there was a drowning case. Now all of a sudden we're getting drowning cases and all sorts of people are, big into the discussion. I just wonder, why is that the case now? But I understand.
Yeah, it's all about that algorithm. And many things we just don't hear about just because people aren't talking about that. Sometimes things take off in the news and you just cannot explain why.
Right. I think you use the illustration when you buy a car, you start to notice other cars of
Yeah,
similar make, right?
exactly.
So I
Exactly.
get it. I
Yeah,
get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's very similar to the Nolan Wells in some cases. At least we're hearing about deleted messages and all sorts of things. So it just made me wonder, just wonder.
Yeah.
Um, Moving on, what are your thoughts in regards to the case we're covering with Luigi Mangione?
Well, I mean, there's really not much going on there in terms of they are preparing for two cases, two major
Right.
cases. As you said at the top of the show, we're looking at September. And then I think after that, we're going to January. These are still back to back cases. I would be surprised if they moved it, from January, that federal case. We've seen them trying to attempt some type of psychiatric defense that was ultimately withdrawn. I think that his team, Luigi's team, is trying to figure out what is going to be our strategy because they're just a set of bad facts that they have presented with them. We've got video, we've got evidence, we've got, not everything was admitted in terms of what happened in Altoona, Pennsylvania, but enough was admitted to connect the dots for a jury to say, you know what, this is the guy that did it. So you have to, as the defense, come up with those reasons that they think will play out well for a jury. And from what we hear in terms of who might be on a particular jury pool, Mel, it may go either way. All right. You
Right.
don't know who you're going to get in that jury pool. You don't know what they're going to do at the end of the trial, if they actually go to trial. And that's another thing to point out. There have been some talks or some leaks of probably incorrect information of plea deals. His attorneys are saying that is not the truth. That's not even something that we're discussing. But who knows what ultimately may become of that because plea deals are always up on the table until the last minute. So, but it's not something that his attorneys say that they are kind of exercising their right to look into right now. So you just don't know where this will go, but they are definitely trying to figure out a strategy to not get him no time, but probably, I would say, less time.
Right. I was in court with Luigi probably two appearances ago, and he had a big outburst. He was talking about, how can I be have two cases for the same killing? Could you explain to us how is that possible? Why does he have to sit for a federal and a state trial for the same occurrence?
Yeah, well, that's the way the system is set up. We've got state charges, which are different than federal charges. Federal charges, you're talking about anything that's on a list of crimes that might be a federal list of crimes and that is punishable by at least 1 year in prison. So it's a different system. It's a different process in terms of, going through a trial, and it's a different process in terms of time served and where you served and how the sentencing is also administered. State laws and federal laws are different. Federal laws are created to be stricter, and certainly when you look at state crimes, people talk about the jails that people have to go through on a state level that are I mean, no jail is fun to be in, but they say that state jails are particularly harsher. So there are different types of crimes that he was involved in because he crossed state lines. And when you cross state lines and when you commit certain crimes, then you move into the federal arena. He created crimes or committed crimes allegedly on the state and federal level, and that's why he's going through both systems. This is something that is not unheard of, and this is something that, his attorneys have talked about. Is there a double jeopardy issue here? Why is he actually going through the process for the same crime? Well, if they want to fight, the Constitution and the statutes and what's out there in this process, that probably won't happen. He's going to have to be adjudicated on both of these state and federal levels because that is the system that we have, and he committed crimes within both on both levels.
It's amazing. I covered the hearings for both of these trials so far, the trials that are upcoming. He also has 5 charges in Pennsylvania when he was arrested in that McDonald's. So even after he clears these 2 trials, he has to go back to PA to stand trial too.
Yeah. And that's like a lot of people that we know, there are people who are in jail and they have to come out of jail in order to take part in a different type of a trial, a state trial. I mean, look at R. Kelly and what he had to do. And Sean Combs, when he gets out, he's going to be facing more charges in more states. It's just a matter of process and a matter of time.
Right. Speaking of Sean Combs, remember when we started that trial? We actually attended that trial together, right?
Yeah.
They started off with the video of Diddy and Cassie, that whole debacle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the video for Luigi Mangione and the way they're going to play it, you think that's going to be hard for the jury to overcome?
Well, if they can connect the dots and if they can, meaning the prosecutors, connect the dots and show that this was Luigi Mangione and show him leaving wherever he was staying and connect the dots that he got on his bike at this point and this was him at this point. He's wearing the same jacket. If they can connect the dots without any type of reasonable doubt, then yeah, that video is going to speak volumes. Now, remember, what we know about the video and what we understand about the video is going to be presented in a totally different way, a way that we have no idea what's going to be allowed to be said about the video. Because many times, as we know, when we talk about evidence and what goes into a court for a jury to consider, it's not really about the evidence. It really is about what evidence actually makes it through procedurally for the jury to see on their clean slate. They have to forget everything that they know about Luigi, the green he was wearing, the throngs of people who he supported. They have to forget the video. They have to start from scratch. And we have the prosecutor and the defense that are going to have to make their case. So you never know how the video is going to play out because you do not know what evidence is going to be allowed, and you don't know what everything is going to look like in context next to each other.
Right. When I attended the hearing for the state case that's coming up, the trial starts in September, they brought in about 13 officers that were collected in that McDonald's trying to be a part of his arrest. Should we look forward to seeing each of these officers cross-examined during the trial? Because in many cases, the defense was able to catch them telling untruths.
Yeah. So what you got was kind of a precursor to what we're going to see in court. They're going to select the people. Listen, there's one thing that you don't want to do is turn off a jury. 13 people is a lot. If all these people are redundant and making the same point, that's one thing. But if they make their point, whether it be the defense or the prosecution, and call who they want to, because they've already seen how they perform on the witness stand and what they're going to say, and they have to stick to that. And as you said, they kind of caught them out there, right? In terms of procedurally what they did wrong. You will see those ones that make the best case, and this is the defense, let's go for the defense side, that will make the best case of having done something wrong in the process and violated his constitutional rights as a part of that arrest. Prosecutors, the same thing. You're going to, get the people who procedurally got it right and talk about the fact that, well, some of the evidence was actually procedurally retrieved properly, and that's why it's going to be admitted in court. We've already heard, people can Google the evidence that is going to be in court and made it. And there was quite a bit. Some of it didn't make it in, but enough made it in to make those defense attorneys a little bit nervous.
Right. For the hearing for the state, I believe the prosecution was using words like manifesto and also executioner of Brian Thompson. So the prosecution, the defense actually, Karen Agnifilo says, "Hey, why are you allowing the prosecution to use these words? You know, so aggressive about Luigi." The judge says, "Well, they can use these words now because there's no jury here, but
Mhm.
during the trial, he won't be allowed to use those words." Why is this important?
Yeah, words are very important. Manifesto and executioner are actually words where you've decided what a person already is. We've already said that they are the ones who executed someone, or that this manifesto was, just a streaming of his thoughts about what he's going to do and his intentions. Well, you really can't use words in that way because that's actually for the jury to decide if this was an execution, if this was a manifesto, kind of a directive of what he was going to do and what his thoughts were about Brian Thompson. So you do have to be very, very careful in terms of the types of words that you use. Listen, if you think of a word like, you can say somebody took a purse, or you can say somebody snatched a purse. Okay, so we both know in both situations that the situation was taken, but they have two different meanings, right? Right? You
Right,
can take someone's purse, you can snatch, and they have kind of, there's different ideas, and contextually you have to understand why these words are important. So they don't want to give juries words that already have drawn conclusions.
right. We attended the hearing actually for Luigi Mangione's state trial. We both were there at the same time. What did you think about his fan club, if you will?
You know what? I thought that his fan club was a lot more how can you
Professional?
I guess, I get astute, if you will, than
Right,
what makes it on TV are the people that are marrying the digital versions of Luigi, and people who've created artwork, and trucks that are going around with signs and the t-shirts, people
right,
wearing green. But I met a lot of women who were there talking about, and mostly women, it was almost 100% about the death penalty and his Sixth Amendment right, to right to a fair trial, right to a fair and speedy trial, healthcare concerns, automatically being refused for certain types of medical conditions. They were a lot more pensive than what I've seen on TV. And quite frankly, a lot of them did not want to speak on camera. So you wouldn't see, that particular group talk, but a lot of them were from organizations, represented groups, death penalty groups, and were there in a different way than what we've seen. And then there were women there who were there because they really wanted to be a part of the process, and like Luigi Mangione for a number of reasons that you might think of, for a 19-year-old or 20-year-old to skip her job, right? We talked to a lot of them, some of their parents didn't even know they were there, but they wanted to be there in order to support him.
right. We have a new trend now when individuals, come up for charges or whatever, they're starting to collect enormous amounts of money on GoFundMe and so forth. I think in the case of Luigi Mangione, he's up over 1.5 million. What do you think about this new trend helping individuals to get probably some of the best attorneys money can buy?
Yeah, well, you know what? That's the age that we live in. Every time I look up, someone is asking for money for something at all turns. It's just the digital age that we live in. And if you're going to get an attorney and you need, a 300,000, 500,000 retainer, well, then you're going to want a fund. And if you have an idea that you might be able to get that retainer from the public because the public is interested and supporting your concern, well, then why not? Because good attorneys are not going to work for you for free. They're not going to work for you on a contingency. You are going to have a very hundreds of $1,000s in order to just retain a Ben Crump Agnifilo, Karen, or is it Brian? Yeah, you need a lot of money. So you know what? More power to the funds. If you can do it, go ahead. There's certainly people who are out there who are going to support everybody on whatever side that they are on, and you're going to need money in order to get a legal defense. I mean, it's kind of sad in that in order for you to get really special, sharp legal defense, that you have to have so much money. The system
Right.
shouldn't be set up in that way because most people don't have that much money, which is why we spent last summer reading headlines about the cost of eggs. People are broke, but that is the system in which we live. So take advantage of the system and get your retainer.
Right. In the case of Sean Diddy Combs, we learned that the jury took a stance. In fact, one of the jurors that was a scientist, he kind of, he didn't go for a lot of the drug. Uh, Maybe I shouldn't use that word on YouTube, but the distribution, right? So that
Yeah.
that was able to sway things. In the case of Luigi Mangione, during the hearing, some of the officers admitted that they lied to him, and they also said when they went to Indiana to the police officer school, they were taught that they could lie to individuals or create a ruse. So, do you think hearing that from the standpoint of a jury could make a big difference?
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not sure what will be said on the stand. It's kind of a wait and see proposition there. I
Right,
will say this, that when you talked about, the distribution of the drugs, a lot of these terms have to be explained. In fact, that was one of the first definitions that the jury asked for in the Sean Combs case. What
right,
exactly is distribution? And as you said, it kind of stumped a lot of jurors because distribution is actually really just handing something over to the next person. That doesn't have to be an exchange of money. There doesn't have to be anything except that you are passing it, and that counts as distribution. So the more that information that they get, and the more nuanced, the legal definition is in terms of them understanding it, it definitely makes a difference because once they got that particular definition, that all you have to do is pass something, right? It's not some currency exchange. I think a lot of people were saying that can't be distribution. That means we're all distributors, right? So I'm not sure what's going to happen though in that Luigi case, or what the jury's going to ask for.
right. So, what should we expect going forward as far as the state trial? Should we expect opening arguments right away? Can you kind of give us a little layout?
You know what? So that's going to be what, on September 7th or 8th?
Eighth, I believe.
Yeah, that's going to be on September 8th. Big deal in this particular case is going to be jury selection. Let's just stop and talk about that for a moment.
All
They're going
right.
to have hundreds of people that they are going to narrow down and ask questions. This case has so many, because everybody, thinks about healthcare or has someone who's been sick, or you've had a tooth that hurts. Everyone is affected by the healthcare industry. And so this is something that's going to be it's very, very particular in terms of the questions that are asked, the jury questionnaires, the voir dire process, asking them on the stand what their beliefs are. That jury process is one of the most important processes in the whole thing that Luigi is going to go through. And that's going to take a long time. So, before anything, just the questionnaires and where are they pulling these people from for this case that's going to be, it could be, probably a couple of months. So that's the biggest thing that they're preparing for. How are we going to get the exact jurors that we want? We know that the jury was very important in the Carmelo Anthony case. We know how that played out, and they're bringing up that as a constitutional um, problem in this case, which is why they're appealing. It is exceptionally important, and it's something that people should pay attention to. Ultimately, they're going to be deciding this person's fate.
Right, right. Let me ask you this: when it comes to choosing the jurors, um, is it really a random process? A lot of people are starting to doubt the process because of Carmelo Anthony's case.
Well, I mean, they use records, DMV records, voting records in order to get their pool. Carmelo Anthony, they started out with about almost 600 people, narrowed it down to get their jurors and their alternates. You know, it's not a process that is that sound or right to begin with. It's not really something that, you know, you get a certain amount. For example, in Carmelo Anthony, I think each side got 10 peremptory challenges, meaning that you can strike anyone for any reason and you don't have to give the reason, and that you're given that. Right. So if you think that somebody is, you know, dresses sloppy and you don't want them on the case because they don't pay attention to detail, and you want someone to pay attention to detail, you can get rid of them. What you can have is that in your strikes of the 10 people, it can't be all black men. Right. That's a problem. There's a case called Batson v. Kentucky that established this idea that, all right, you have these peremptory challenges, but it can't be, you know, you can't land on something where you seem like you have bias in your process. I'm gonna knock all the women off, all black women off, all black men off, anybody who's disabled off. You really have to, at that point, be challenged by attorneys. And if you have a race neutral reason that you give and the judge accepts it, then that's okay. And that's what happened in the Carmelo Anthony case, especially when the last three black women who had made it all the way down to the final steps, they all got kicked off because they were educators. This is something that Justice Thurgood Marshall talked about quite a bit. He said the peremptory challenges are ridiculous, and they really are. Because if you can find a workaround and get rid of said women or said black person or said, you know, whatever person you want to get rid of, well, then, you know, you can tell the judge anything. The peremptory challenges, they're almost unworkable and will always cause a problem. The other challenges that you as an attorney have are called challenges for cause. And anybody that you strike outside of those peremptory challenges in Texas, by the way, the numbers change depending upon which jurisdiction you're in, but you have to give a reason. You have to give a good reason. And that makes sense. Give me the reason for all of them. Why do people get peremptory strikes where you don't have to give a reason at all? I think that will always create a problem. We are all born with natural biases, and there is no way that out of those 600 people, you were able to select a jury with not one black person.
Right.
I think that that's problematic.
So here's my question to you. I know it's just probably rhetorical, but how can you start off? I think it was 587 people in the pool for Carmelo Anthony. You get down to the last three black women, and they're all educators. Like, how could that be possible?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. Number one, educators um, and their schedules are slightly a little more workable, if that makes sense. Um, and so, you know, we've got substitute teachers. Educators are off during the summer. So I understand how a pool of educators might be a ripe group to tap into. Educators in this situation turned out to be an issue because the Carmelo Anthony case took place on school grounds. And if you're an
Right.
educator, and we've talked about this before, I know. And you have children too. I know how 18-year-olds act. Like there is a little bit of empathy, sympathy where you understand if you're an educator how kids behave in school. And you might tend, not you personally, but one might tend to have a little more empathy and understanding as to what happened. And they didn't want that. And that's what they said. This is too close to home, that these are educators. This took place in a school. And so they're off. Now, the problem becomes now on this appeal, potentially for the prosecution, if they let other educators through or other adjacent education related jobs and people go through. And so that's what Carmelo Anthony's attorneys are going through right now. If you're concerned about all these educators and you got rid of them, you better have gotten rid of every single educator or any person that had any job related to education. They should have been gone. And that's the due diligence that they're going through now.
Okay, very good. Here's another question for you in regards to Sean Diddy Combs. Remember on that jury, after the trial started, they kicked the guy off because they said he lied on his questionnaire. So
Yeah.
is there someone along the way checking everybody's statements out and making sure you're honest?
Well, I mean, during the process of asking individual questions to the jurors, potential jurors, they are supposed to be honest. They are asked to come in as impartial jurors and tell the truth. So that's the expectation. And then you have the attorneys and often the judges that will sit with them. Some listen, and it's not unusual for a judge to sit down with a potential juror in their separate chambers and ask questions if they really need to on a one-on-one, or bring a group in to be a part of the process to ask them specifically questions that might be a little bit nuanced on their questionnaire to get down to determine whether or not they should stay or they should go. So, and that process takes a long time. It takes a very, very long time. In the O.J. Simpson trial, I haven't brought that up. I don't even think I've brought that up with you ever. But there were about 270 questions, right? And you had to do that because of so many reasons. I mean, do you like football, right? Do you like movies? He was doing so many things that they had to narrow it down and see if there were any biases. But the jury questionnaire often takes a long time, and it is very, very precise. What do you watch on TV? What is the and in this particular case, let's say Luigi Mangione. I'm going to want to know, have you ever been in the hospital for an extended period of time? What did you think about your stay? Did you go to, where are you on Medicare? Have you ever been rejected? We need to know all of those. Doesn't mean that you can't be on the jury, but it does open the door for me to ask you questions to make sure that you can be what they call an impartial juror and come in with a clean slate. And that takes time. And so, to answer your question, the attorneys and sometimes the judge will go through and make sure that they're getting the most honest responses as possible.
Okay, it seems that your stream has frozen, so I'm going to take a moment, have you come out and come right back in if you don't mind. I'm not sure what's causing that glitch.
Oh, okay. Can you still hear me at all?
Yeah, we could hear you. It's just that for some reason. Okay, now you're good. I don't know
Oh,
what
really?
happened.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, so now we're good. So here's my other question for you. In the case of Sean Diddy Combs, as I was sitting through jury selection, people, you could tell they really wanted to be on the jury, right?
Yeah.
How can you find people that don't know anything about Luigi Mangione?
Well, it's okay that they know something about him. It really is okay that they know something about him. It's just okay. It's just not okay if they can't decide in a way where they can be fair to everybody involved. And some people will honestly say, I can't be fair. You know, my mom just died because she was prevented from getting health insurance because there was an AI process that kicked her out of the system. I can't be fair. That's great. You're honest and you're also off the jury because you can't be fair. But you will find that person, right? Like, I don't know about that Sean Combs person and why he seemed to try so hard to actually be on the case. But you will find that person that says, you know what? Maybe I get a little 15 minutes of fame out of this. I mean, Luigi probably is bigger than Sean in some ways. I mean, Sean was even though he is known to the masses, healthcare is bigger than the number of people of healthcare is bigger than the number of people who are interested in Sean Combs. Just in terms of the little math. So they're going to have a real difficult time just pulling this together because a lot of people will want to be on this case. They just will.
Right. One of the big things about this case is that, at least what's insinuated for the hearings, is that he basically did this because the healthcare industry allows so many people with cancer, diabetes to die every day. So they look at him as being some sort of hero or
Yeah.
Robin Hood. Do you think, I see now on the mainstream media, they're saying some people are going to try to get on the jury just to save Luigi. How could someone do that though? Right?
Yeah, I love this movie and I show it to my students called Runaway Jury. And it really is just about that. It's about people who try to get on a jury in order to, make the case go one way. Old picture picture. I sound like, it's 1945. It's an old movie, but worth watching. Um, how do you know that you're not going to get that person? You really don't know. You really just don't know. Somebody might get on there. Somebody might ultimately. We've heard people talk about jury nullification, right? Where the jury says, you know what, we heard the evidence, we heard the facts, but we don't like this outcome, and for other reasons that we've discussed, we are going to nullify, you know, everything in this process, and we're going to make the decision on our own, whether it's guilty or not guilty. So, I mean, it's rare, but I've heard that more often than not in this particular case because people are so passionate, Mel. What was some of the craziest things that you've seen outside of the courthouse with Luigi in terms of the crowds or in terms of talking to people? Folks are passionate about this.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was out there the first day. It's probably like literally 10 degrees outside, freezing. And as I approach, I mean, I have on gloves, I have on a hat, everything. And there's guys out there that don't have a hat on, no coat, and they're just there being paid $300 a day. And some of them have on a Super Mario's costume, and they're just there to promote Luigi the first day. After that, you don't see him again.
Right, right,
That
exactly.
to me, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And you're right, you bear the cold, you bear you should do a show on just the nature of even getting into a courthouse. For people who don't know, Mel is the king of being number one in line, and it's no easy feat. It's a process, you know.
Yeah.
We talked last show about you being down south and you know running to a stop sign in the middle of the rain in order to get your place in line, and that's actually come up on appeal that this was not really open up to the public, the Carmelo Anthony case, in the right way. But it's before you even get into the courtroom, which people might see as a circus in some ways. There's a circus outside, and there's a whole process that you have to go through in order to be a part of the system that you're paying for as a taxpayer. And I think that that's interesting to talk about. And I think that people should take advantage and go sit and be up close and personal. But if you do want to sit, you got to get up at 2 a.m. and be there, and you got to beat Mel.
It's a tough deal, right? Really
Yeah,
tough.
it is. It is. It is. Oh my
Right,
goodness.
right. So let me ask you this in regards to, we only have maybe 8 minutes left. What are
Okay.
your thoughts in regards to President of the United States? It looks like we've gone back and forth with Iran. We have a deal, there's no deal. We have a deal, there's no deal. Do you think we're headed for a big sweep with the Democrats for the midterm elections, or you think it's just a pipe dream?
So this is something, and I told you before the show, don't ask me about this, but I'm going to say this. However, it won't be 8 minutes though. I'm going to say that there is a reason why people are getting nervous right now. And that is because of what might happen in the upcoming election. People are nervous for a reason. And when people kind of get out of sorts and get out of pocket about things, it's because they feel threatened, and it's because they don't feel good about the way that the bent of the House and the Senate is going to go. I do not think that it is a pipe dream. I also think that you have to check the temperature of the culture. We are in a different culture. It's interesting. The culture can change in terms of what's going on in America, how people feel about themselves, their lives, their jobs, their how situated they feel and firm in their spot. That could change in September and October. They could be worse off or better off. And that really kind of it's it's very much like Wall Street. Day to day, how are people feeling about themselves, what's going on in the country, and what we are sensing right now on this wonderful summer night is going to be different from what we're going to feel in November. And I don't know what that looks like, but the closer we get to that, the more we can get an idea. But that is not a pipe dream.
Right. This is the first time, because I follow the stock market really heavy. And this is the first time that I start to see the market really declining. So it gives a good indication that things are starting to change for the worse.
Yeah. And I'm curious from you because you do follow it, more closely than I do. Some of the factors that I was discussing, do they still play in as much as I think they do, just in terms of how people are feeling about themselves? Because that definitely changes how I go out and spend money. And I would imagine that that would change somebody else's, or maybe, I don't know, maybe AI is a bigger factor. What is your sense?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I mean, because I'm heavy into the market, even with all that happened with Iran, there was no turning back. The market was still increasing. But now I think the confidence in the market or in the president is causing the market to finally take some sort of hit. So that could be dangerous, especially if you're heavily invested in various companies, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Mm.
I will be very interested in seeing where AI puts us in 1 year. I will tell you that. Because if you have fewer people that are working and AI is coming in to take your jobs, well then you have fewer people that are contributing to the economy overall and to the system, and they don't have money to pay and keep everything going. Anyway, a year from now it will be very interesting to see what happens.
Right. So the rumor mill has it that Sean Combs, this is where we started, that he'll be home in August, right? I'm pretty sure you probably
Well, that
you
and
heard
and
those.
that's what they call it, a rumor.
This is what the rumor
Yeah,
mill
that's
has.
what
Yeah.
I think that people, they project their high hopes into the algorithm, and it's not against the law, and it's not, something you're going to be arrested for. It's amazing just how, what people say online takes its own life. He wouldn't be getting out. That would be a terrible precedent for other people. But what this does let me know is that when he does get out, he's going to fill that stadium. There is no way around it. There is no. Do you agree with me that he can fill a stadium? Now, I didn't say what size, but he's going to fill a stadium.
I think so.
Oh yeah.
When I first started covering his trial initially, if you even said anything positive to the family, people were like, "Oh, how could you? They supported him." But toward the end of his trial, if he had walked out of there not guilty, they would have made him a god, you know. That's how
Oh
much
my gosh.
people were really wanting him to walk out those doors. And I was shocked. 'Cause I'm like, this is not the same people that about 4 weeks ago were saying he's a cruel and terrible individual, you know?
Yeah, someone just put in the comments, I hope Diddy makes another album when he gets out. He's doing it now. Whoever wrote that, he's doing it now. He is, and not only that, but this is his livelihood. So what is he going to get out and do nothing? No, he wants a certain lifestyle. He's going to have to get back to work again. And oh no, we're going to see a lot of him, which is really interesting because it's such a different dynamic than R. Kelly, which you can only compare them in a certain way. But they're definitely going to have to. Well, first of all, he's going to get out and see the light of day. R. Kelly, with the years that he's got, he's not going to get out and see the light of day. Sean Combs has plans, is all I'm saying. And it's not that I'm supporting him or saying, yeah, I hope. I'm just saying this is what the culture is telling me. And this is how people are. Listen, the people who were in the overflow room, they supported that man. They mostly supported that man. It's going to be the same thing when he gets out. Trust and believe.
Right, right. Definitely. Well, thank you so much. We covered a lot of territory today. It was nice to have you on the show.
All right. Thank you. Good to see you always.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you next week, same time, right?
All right. We'll see you
All
then.
right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Different voices, but the same song. Loving a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the thing remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beat as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.